So in addition to our guest speakers, we also have three speakers or three panelists who represent some suppliers of augmented reality technology. So if each of you could please introduce yourself and give a short description of what your company is doing, that would be great.
I'll do it. Hi, I'm Scott McCarley, Senior Director of Product and Market Strategy at PTC. For those of you who may not know PTC, we're a 6,000 person software company. Been around for over 30 years, started with innovative parametric CAD technology, or the first parametric CAD technology in the market. Have software to help people design, manufacture, and operate and service their products. Today we're focused on unlocking the value that occurs between the convergence between the digital and physical worlds, so both IoT and AR. Our AR technology is Vuforia. ThingWorx is the principal platform behind our IoT technology. And just one comment on Vuforia, that I think it's 60,000 apps, experiences have been made using Vuforia technology. So you'll find those 60,000 in the app, Google's App Store, Play Store, and the Apple iStore or App Store.
Hi there, my name is Matt Cospodino. I'm Director of Marketing for Aviva. A brief introduction for those of you who don't know who Aviva is. A 50-year-old company, the combination of the Aviva portfolio and the Schneider Electric software portfolio. We do everything from engineering, procurement and design support for large EPCs and large plant builds, all the way through to monitoring and control solutions, or HMI SCADA software, the historian products that sit over the top and manage the data information flows, through to asset optimization, planning, scheduling and trading, and also simulation, operator training and support. So obviously we invited Marcello here to demonstrate some of the AR technology that we offer the market, and some practical applications of that AR technology. Thank you.
Craig?
So Craig Bauhaus, I'm a Senior Industry Solution Executive for Manufacturing at Microsoft. Part of a U.S. industry team that focuses on working with customers and working with partners to find the right customer-centric solution. I think most of you are probably aware of Microsoft. If not, feel free to reach out to me at the end and I'll tell you all about them.
Great. So questions. Do we have any questions? Okay. Sandeep, could you bring the microphone around, please? Thank you. Okay, so if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand.
Hi, I'm Steve McIntosh with Williams. So I'm really curious about the use that you had when you were able to 3D model the equipment. How mature are you finding the various vendors are, or how accessible are some of those, I guess the PNIDs or the 3D modeling blueprints for those? For example, if we have a fleet of Caterpillar engines, is it easy enough to get those so that they can be transported into a usable AR environment like this? What's your experience with that, and kind of where are we as an industry?
So we know that we don't have a standard, we don't build standard machines. We don't have standardization of the product because it's characterized by high level customization. But this is the big point we are dealing with, because we have to achieve a process, a easy process to create all the models for all the machines. But it's just we have to engineer this process right now.
So if
Aviva or one of the other vendors, are you finding that you're able to get a hold of the right drawings that you need to help model that equipment for customers? I mean, obviously Caterpillar's not just going to publish everything out on the internet for everybody.
Yeah, look, I think in terms of relationships or scenarios where there's a third-party vendor, look, I think we generally tend to work with the customer to lean on that vendor to supply some of those diagrams to facilitate the modelling. On the plant design side of things, it's a little bit easier for us because we have that full depth and breadth of engineering design from CAD in 1D, 2D, 3D and 4D. So when we've got a customer that's using the full range of products, the importing of those CAD diagrams to be able to support the modelling of that plant is much easier. Where we have brownfield customers, we also have technology where we rely on laser scanning of the existing facility to be able to interpret the format of that facility and be able to render the virtual reality and the augmented reality that way.
Maybe I'd just add, absolutely agree. You can lean on the vendor to try and provide some CAD geometry or CAD imagery, but you can also get a lot of value, as you saw, if you don't have those, right? You don't need to have the 3D drawings in order to get value out of AR. If you had a plant with lots of equipment, you could still overlay all of the digital information. You can use either other sources of imagery and just location to be overlaying that, the proper data in context of your physical layout. So there's still a lot of value to be had. I think that is an area where we expect a little bit of market maturity to help solve some of the availability.
Yeah, and to add to that a little bit, so at actually it was a PTC event a couple years ago, Caterpillar had a generator on stage, and they showed that they went through this whole entire 3D model AR process with the idea of using that as a service to sell. And so in those cases, companies like Caterpillar would do the same type of thing that Ital Pressa Gauss is doing, where maybe the end user isn't building these AR type applications, but the supplier is building them and using them as a service to change the business model a little bit. Another question over here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Matt Molladi. I'm from Reliance Industries Limited. And over the last 2 to 3 years, we have been working with Schneider Aviva in using AR, VR in a large scale, which takes a 3D PNID and converts it into a real plant, a lot of active objects. And we can walk through, start, stop, kick in a spare, get into a distillation column using augmented reality, see the trays working as the operator walks through. And all this was done to train, practice, competency assure both operators and engineers and also maintenance technicians. And this question is for Craig and Microsoft. I'm very interested in application of HoloLens because whenever it is shown in a place like India, which is an outpost, we see an application which is somewhat half-baked. But what I saw today shows a complete application in the field where the head-mounted device can be worn in an explosive environment. I'm assuming C1D2 means that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Has it been certified to be used in hydrocarbon environment?
Yeah, so it has the UL registrations for C1D2.
Okay.
And those are on the UL site. They didn't do the European version of that. They are not stamped because they were certified after manufacturing, but they are certified. And
so they can be widely used in US?
Yep. Yeah, okay. we use, and then we leverage that certificate for comfort in our other business units. If we have to take it into like a Class 1 Div 1 environment, we use what's called a hot work permit, and there's a process that we've had in place for decades on how to handle electronic devices in those environments. So it's not that you can't ever. It's just for those extremely explosive environments. We have very specific procedures of how you use it. Versus Class 1 Div 2, we can just use them.
So this is a Chevron solution or a Microsoft solution? If I want the HoloLens to be applied as remote assistant in India, do I have to go to Microsoft? Do I go to Chevron?
It's a great exercise in how our product teams work with our customers very closely to understand the needs of all the different user types and how we can improve the device. So these are improvements and certifications that have happened over time with the existing device. There is, at some point, a next-gen version that will be coming out. How much, that's all tight secret in Microsoft, of how much of the version 1 will be there in the version 2. But all of these are iterative processes that we go through, and really it depends on the customers that are delivering.
Yeah, so,
I want to do it in Jamnagar, India.
so
How soon can we do it? When, and how soon
can you do
we
a Teams
partner?
call in
How
India?
soon can we partner and do a POC and prove to ourselves that it is worthwhile for us to go in a big way? And to give you a scale, Chevron El Segundo is 1/5 of the size of Jamnagar facility. I'm not minimizing Chevron El Segundo. I used to be
We have other
technical manager for Torrance. So I was at Torrance as well,
No, that's
at
fine.
ExxonMobil. So this location has 49 process units. It spreads over a large area, 19,000 acres, including tank farms and all that. So if we do it in a very big way. But we have to prove to ourselves that it's a worthwhile assistant for, say, maintenance activities.
Right.
Forget everything else. So I'm very interested, and it's not a trick question. So after this meeting, if you have any references in Microsoft that can work with us.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's a longer answer to your question, so
Yeah.
we'll be happy to talk
I'll
afterwards.
be happy to talk to you as well.
Just to highlight a few things, though, is right now you cannot buy the HoloLens. It is fully allocated, or as like we call it, sold out. So the next gen will be online at some point. We don't know exactly when that is. So we have a cache of them that we're delivering from. So, but the product itself is remote assist. You just like they were mentioning, you go to the App Store on Android or Apple, you just go to the Windows Store, you click download, you get the license from Microsoft. There's a 30-day free license for that. And then that is the app on the HoloLens, and you you just connect it to Teams, you log in with your Teams account, and then you just start searching. So if I type my name, I just type Ed space Moore, and it globally searches all the Ed Moores and Chevron. I click on it, it calls them. So there's no, if you have Teams running in your existing environment, or Skype for Business, which basically would mean you have Teams, it just works. And that was a key thing for us. We wanted this to just work. I can't stress that enough, right? We did not want a custom solution. We wanted the product that we felt Microsoft would support and enhance, and they are continuing to enhance that. So if they had the devices you could buy today, you could just buy it and deploy it.
So you're saying the device is not available right now?
You cannot buy them. They're sold out right now, is my understanding.
Okay.
We've tried to buy more.
Great, thanks. Steve Garbra from Hitachi Vantara. It's been my experience that in a manufacturing environment, there's a lot of noise, a very noisy environment. And I noticed with the HoloLens, have you found a way to be able to accommodate the hearing protection required by people, and also the ability to interact both with the remote person and to hear things too? How have you gotten around that with the HoloLens?
Yeah, so that's the current gen HoloLens is really, it was not designed for that level of volume, but we do use it in those environments. We do use ear protection. You can use basically either tethered earphones, or you can use Bluetooth-based earphones. So that does work. We expect the next generations to have more capability around that. If you're really interested about where this technology is going, so one of the things Microsoft did recently is they signed a $460 million contract with the U.S. Army to produce basically HoloLenses for the infantry. So there's some great articles out on that. And if you want to see, the great thing about it being a government spec is all the requirements are out there on the public government website. So it talks about things like it's got to work from 90 degree or 40 degrees below to like 140 degrees above Fahrenheit. It's got to be able to work in all these ambient noise conditions. It's got ruggedization. It's got to, if they produce that device, which they're basically have a contract to produce, we're going to be very happy.
Great. Thank you.
So.
Thank you.
We have another question over here.
Yeah, my question is kind of more towards the Microsoft HoloLens, but be interested in an answer from the whole panel. Just curious if you guys have looked at any risks related to cyber with some of these use cases. If someone being able to steal information from your environment, so a confidentiality type breach, or maybe even worse, integrity of the data where someone's provided information that's not accurate. I think everyone does know Microsoft, and I think people know Microsoft vulnerabilities as well, and HoloLens is not free from those vulnerabilities. So just curious, from a risk standpoint, what was looked at prior to these use cases being put in production?
So from a Chevron perspective, went through a full cybersecurity review. For us, we do trust Microsoft from a cyber perspective. That's what all our PCs are on. My PC's a Windows 10 PC. The HoloLens is a Windows 10 device. It's running BitLocker, so the device is fully encrypted. So if somebody steals it, you can't get the data off. It's encrypted. We force that down through policy, so you can't actually get access to our network without that encryption. And then all the communication back and forth is fully encrypted. We're using Teams, that's fully encrypted. OneDrive, fully encrypted. So by leveraging that platform that's out there, we don't worry about that. It just works. Yeah, it's actually more secure than our iPhones from our perspective. But yeah, it's a Windows 10 device. That's how it's seen on our network. Now we do protect. We have layers of networking. We don't put it on our core network. We have what we call a mobility network that our iPhones and other mobile devices are on, because we don't protect the apps that are installed on them as strongly. So.
I have a quick question. On one hand, we got excited with this remote assistant. On the other hand, you're saying HoloLens is not available. So what's competition to HoloLens right now?
So,
No.
It's all you, Ed. So the only other AR-based device, what we consider as true AR, is Magic Leap. That's a startup out of Florida that's gotten about $1.6 billion in venture fund, mainly from Google, and they have about a $4.5 billion valuation. We've gotten one of those devices. We were not as impressed with that device. We just got the first version of the device like 2 or 3 months ago, where the HoloLens we've had for over 2.5 years. So competition, there's not a lot. We do expect Apple to step into this space probably in 2020 is our guess there. So we'll definitely evaluate those devices. Google will probably play in this space. The little players that are out there, my opinion is I wouldn't bother. It's going to be an OS battle just like the phones. So there'll be a couple of key winners in this if you look forward into the future. That's our current assessment of this space. So, and when we say they're not available, there's basically a gap in their production. They sold out quicker before the next gen will be ready. It's not that they definitely have a next gen. We have been confirmed of that. I don't know what you can say.
And I think the other aspect to it is it's not just a AR device or a mixed reality device. It's a full-blown connected PC to your network, to your office, to your Dynamics, all your different Microsoft operating systems, to the cloud. So it's more than just that overlay of information. It's a very interactive approach, leveraging the full suite of Microsoft capabilities.
Yeah, so I'd like to add a comment. So Ed, you made a comment about it being a true AR device, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what you mean by that, it's the optical see-through type AR device.
It's the three-dimensional AR device. So the technology behind the Magic Leap and this, and probably what Apple produces, a technology called waveguides. Sure. And the data is actually projected into your eye the same way it comes in from the environment. So you see things in 3D. They appear to have 3D versus holding up a tablet and it looks like 3D. Yeah. Right. So that's, if you've experienced VR, it's like looking at a model in 3D in a VR headset versus looking at it on a computer screen. Right. So that's the difference. You truly see the depth. And from us, it's also safer because these are somewhat transparent. You just have the limits of physics, and so we can see through them depending on how much contrast you apply, and so you're not obscuring your environment. That's super important for us. Where on a tablet, you're always obscuring what's behind the tablet, and so there's always some risks there that we don't. And we're also not we're hands-free with the HoloLens. That's huge too. Right.
So I'd like to add that there are really kind of two types of technology. There's the optical see-through, which is what the HoloLens is, and also the Magic Leap. And then there's video see-through. So that's the type of technology that works with a tablet, where you're not seeing through your AR device. You're looking at a screen that's got a video feed. And so there's many different types of hardware that use that video see-through technology. That are hands-free. So RealWear is an example of Vuzix. They've both been here in previous years. And they can't do all the capabilities that a HoloLens would be able to achieve, but they certainly can achieve some of those things. So things like remote expert is something that they can do. Obviously, there's some limitation there because they don't have that full optical see-through type technology. All right. Any other questions? We have a question in the back here.
Well, good afternoon. First of all, excellent presentations. And my question is for Ed. The first one is regarding the HoloLens. And well, in the process operations, you have, well, obviously the process, you may have some obstacles, the path may not be fully clear. What I'm going through this is if when you were deploying it in production, it was at any moment expressed some concern regarding the operator, the people wearing it and walking around the plant. And if so, how was addressed?
Yeah, so it can be distracting. So there are things that we've already put in place around from a safety perspective. One of our BUs, they actually will have somebody walk with them just to be extra careful if they need to be projecting holograms in real time. From an operator acceptance, this is something that actually really surprised us. I mean, we had 50, 60-year-old operators that really just picked up the technology within a few minutes, just started using it. It's very intuitive. So that was one thing that actually was something we did not expect. We thought we'd have a much larger change management problem with the technology, but they actually picked it up and used it. And we basically instruct people in like 3 to 5 minutes, and then they're off and running. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. And the second one is we have some operations in which the people need to wear some fields protective device. And I'm wondering if that is compatible with the HoloLens. So you have the HoloLens will eventually has to be something outside because you have to feel a pipe or a station.
So if you're talking about like eyewear, we typically recommend you wearing form-fitting eyewear underneath the HoloLens. So if something comes up underneath, so it won't break the HoloLens cover if it impacts in the front, but there is a gap. It's like a face shield to some degree in that sense. So we do recommend that. It depends on the PPE. I mean, the one thing it does not work with right now is over-the-ear ear protection. So we can only wear in-ear protection at the current point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we have a question over here.
Hi, Larry Megan from Praxair. Just a question for Ed, following up on something that Will said. Did you consider the HoloLens versus like a RealWear kind of solution, which is a little bit less intrusive, but there's puts and takes, of course. I'm just curious on your take on those options.
Yeah, we looked at that technology, I guess right when they were starting up about a little over 2 years ago. It was good technology, and I think if the HoloLens didn't exist, we probably would have considered that much more strongly. I guess where we look at the HoloLens is where it is today. We kind of look at, for those of us that are older, remember the big phones, cell phones that were big and bulky? That's kind of where we are with the HoloLens. So we're hoping with the next generation ones, and based upon the Army specs that are out there, they're going to be closer to the flip phones and then soon the iPhones. So from a technology perspective, we felt that the platform of holographic projections was really going to be the thing that won, and that Remote Expert was really just a step along that, really, because I mean, for Remote Expert, our return on investment, we saved 1 international flight, we just bought 2 of them. So it's a very quick ROI, but there's a lot of other use cases, which I won't go into, that we're looking at for enabling, at a high level, things like training, work instructions, 3D visualization of models. There's some really great products out there. So I'll call out to 2 of our vendors, which I think have been really helpful. Is one's Tactile Manifest, which is work instructions. PTC has a great work instruction product too, but also a product called Visual Live. They have a HoloLive product that allows you to basically take your AutoCAD drawings and put them to full scale with a few inches of precision and basically project exactly how that model is going to look in real world. So we take that out to location, blow it up, and look and see how it's going to look when we actually finish building. So those are things we are early on with.
So there's a lot of questions on the earpiece and the sound, things like that. I don't know if Ed's group's done this, but we do have a customer, heard their story. One of the things that they're doing is we've all heard of that manufacturing worker that's been there for 30 years and can hear the event happen on the machine. We've got a customer that actually is leveraging that. When they hear something, the HoloLens will pick it up, and immediately attach it to grabbing the data associated with whatever device they're with and capturing all that information that they're hearing. Now they want to see what they're hearing and validate it. So it's really interesting because we always hear that story about that user, but it's a nice way to start to adapt the technology to solving that issue.
Yeah. Scott?
And I was just going to add, you know, there, you know, outside of maybe the factory floor, right? There are a lot of other also scenarios. So, you know, some common ones that, you know, Ed mentioned training. I mean, that's really huge. I think, you know, training so that one, you don't need to be at the piece of equipment when you're interacting and learning from it. Into now I'm staying in the factory floor, but assembly line. You know, assembly line work for really improving the, you know, giving explicit instructions when, as you go down the path towards mass customization or flexibly deploying a workforce. And that's a huge area of, I guess, uptake for us. In the product design process, you know, product reviews, so people using it to be able to share among a team what a product in development is going to look like. All the way certainly through service, right? In field service, you know, it's a different scenario, and then product differentiation. And Marcello certainly showed how they're differentiating their product, but there's all sorts of ways you can differentiate with, you know, AR, whether it's a, you know, a Lego experience with Nexo Nights, you know, on the consumer side, to just showing, you know, operational efficiencies that could be gained on your equipment. So there's really, I think, a whole host in sales and marketing as well. We didn't touch on. I mean, it's really almost any division within your organization has some potential usage of AR.
And in embracing digital transformation, a great place to see all these stories is YouTube. If you search HoloLens or HoloLens construction or HoloLens Chevron, one of the nice parts about it is all the folks that are using it are really creating videos and sharing how they're used. Customers are creating videos and sharing them on YouTube. It's much more than we can keep up with from a company standpoint, but it's really a great way to go out and see what different people are doing with the VR mixed reality technology.
Yeah, just to follow up on that point, I totally agree. I think that there's a lot of cool stuff out there, and you know, being a marketing person, I'm constantly scouring the web for new applications and new use cases for some of this cool technology, because I think it really has a transformational effect on industry. You know, I think the other thing that we haven't really touched on to a huge extent is, you know, the millennial workforce. You know, one of the things that I think industry has had a problem with in the past is engaging that next generation of workers. And a big part of that has been the technology that they see on the shop floor, right? And the applications of different types of technology. Industry tends to be, you know, a little bit of a laggard when it comes to the embracing of new technologies compared to consumers. And I think this is something that will really help industry bridge that workforce, that demographic changing in the workforce, because it is the cool tech that will draw the next generation in. And they're all evangelists, so they will all create YouTube videos to show their friends how cool their new office is. You know, it could be an offshore platform somewhere. It could be a factory floor. It could be anywhere. But it's a real way to engage that next generation of workers, to give them tech that they're proud to sort of come in and play with every day.
Just to build on that, I can't tell you how many times I have to loan it out to our recruiting teams. They take them to the colleges and show this is what our facilities look like. And so we have a couple out right now even.
So I have a question for the group. And so we'll start with the supply side. Do you have any tips for companies or individuals who are looking to adopt augmented reality? So tips for how to either engage maybe executives within their company, or how to look or search through maybe applications that make the most sense to tackle first. And then for our end users, maybe you could comment on those tips to see if they're really effective, or if you found things in your own experience.
I'm going to jump in partially because I don't want someone else's easy answer, and Ed showed it. I think, you know, first things first is you have to demonstrate the value. You know, pulling out what is the business impact, what is the dollar savings or productivity gain that you expect. A project has to start there. So I think that's a must-do. I think identifying maybe a scenario that you can implement more easily, right? So maybe there is one that doesn't require you to have the full CAD geometry. If it's not your equipment, don't, maybe shoot for that as your first use case. So, I mean, I guess just to reiterate, start with the business value and then jump in on the technology side.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree more, and I think you'll probably get a similar answer to this question from all of us. Will, fast ROI, sort of catching on to some of the themes and points that were delivered around digital transformation and things like pilot projects. There's a lot of pilot projects out there that are falling over at the moment. Not a bad thing in and of itself, but quite costly to some customers, and tends to burn a lot of goodwill with executives, right? So from our perspective, it's about finding a small enough use case that can demonstrate that ROI in a really quick turnaround. And thanks to companies like Microsoft, this technology is commercial off the shelf. It's, it hooks up to Teams, it hooks up to a range of Microsoft applications. So I think, finding the use case that can deliver a decent ROI and something you can go back to the board with and say, look, we've proven this, now let us sort of try a few more things. It's absolutely paramount.
May I apologize? I jumped in too quickly. Now is a better element, and I'll pass this down. But this is true for all of the vendors. So, please reach out if you're trying to. We want to help you appeal to an executive organization, and it wouldn't just be the value of the POC of the project that you might start with. We'd love to work with you, and there's members in my company and all of these who would help put a value towards the digital transformation, inclusive of other technologies experienced through AR. Right? You're going to start with that project, but you would appeal as part of a digital transformation initiative. Right? I think that's the best path to getting executive attention and getting a project started.
Craig, would you like to add to that?
So, agree completely with the group. Where Microsoft's developing the technology, certainly in association with customers and how they're using it, there's quite a few folks out there that have a HoloLens or they have two, and they're looking at mixed reality and AR solutions. As you develop those value chains, there's a point where you really should reach out and work with a partner that's developing solutions in this space. It is still in its raw form as a development environment, and there's some really good people doing some really great work with them. A real key is, in some cases, it's a design house. Now, partners over here have more capabilities to help customers at a larger scale. We have other customers that are leveraging design houses so that they create a very usable application. Once that's done, the nice part about it is technology that you can share, and it's something different than an executive's going to see anywhere else. So they will quickly see the value once you connect those dots.
Thank you. And so if our end users could comment on that as well.
So I think that in some cases the process is different. So we don't use the technology to because we have to, but it comes from a need that we experience all the day with our customers, and the needs for our experiences to cut the time from the problem to the intervention, but also just from the problem to the diagnosis of this problem. And with Aviva, we just look forward that these technologies can do can be the key to achieve these needs.
I mean, just from some of the things I mentioned is, don't overlook the IT integration if you're trying to scale. Definitely find a project that has a quick return on investment so you can get it out there and start getting the scale and learning from that. Have a vision of where you want this to go. So this is kind of version, capability 1 of the technology, but we probably have another dozen capabilities that we want this to do over the next 3 years. So that's very important. But don't go too fast. You go too fast and you stumble a little bit, that can hurt the product quite a bit, or the rollout. So make sure you can be successful, because some negative press, like we just got a response from one of our BUs. They were like, oh yeah, somebody said there was vertigo. And it was like, okay, where did that comment come from? We've never heard that in 2.5 years. And so we had to chase that down, and they had commented about something around VR. And so it's like you got to make sure, and this is just, so I'm part of an emerging tech team. It's like you've got to get on all these issues and be on top of it and really stay focused to where the business units become your evangelists. So we have like 12.5 people across the globe in different business units, which we call HoloLens champions, that help drive the technology within their BUs. So get the buy-in locally too, if you're a global company, but focus, deliver value.
Sorry, well, just to close out, if I may, in the case of Italpress, one of the big benefits for their business was the ability to diversify their business. Right, it was very much a single touch point to the customer. The machine goes out, and then it's not the end of the relationship, but it was very difficult to kind of maintain that relationship. So one of the things, one of the bits of advice I would look at is have a look at how you can, diversify your revenue, diversify your business value to your customers through some of these technologies. It's meant that Italpress is able to stay in constant contact with their customers, give them an alternate recurring revenue stream, which is something they've never had before. And we have testimonials from Carlo, the president of Italpress, where he's basically said that he believes that the service side of his business will be equal to the revenue that they're getting from the actual point of sale of the actual machine. So I think, in terms of ROI, there's the obvious, the obvious cost savings around travel and things like that Ed mentioned in his presentation. But there's also some of the big picture things that can come as a secondary benefit from some of the adoption of these technologies. So think about that as well in terms of building business cases.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the audience? We have a question here. Yeah.
So Jesse Allen from Microsoft as well. I wanted to get a couple customers' viewpoints on integrating other platforms into the HoloLens, so ERP, MRP, asset management solutions. What's your roadmap when you think about exposing more data within the HoloLens? And then second question, are you also looking at virtual assistants, so Cortana or OK Google, Siri, that kind of thing in your HoloLens as well?
Yeah, so that's one capability I didn't really talk about was
Talk a little closer to the mic.
Was on Cortana. The HoloLens has Cortana built in, so you can talk and ask questions. So we have a broader initiative called our voice text bot initiative within Chevron, where we're trying to progress that technology. So we have probably a half dozen bots that we currently access really through Teams and through SharePoint, mainly through text. But as that voice capability comes online, we think that's a key enabler, right? So just like I want to be hands-free, I just want to talk, because trying to type on a virtual keyboard will drive you mad. So it does have pretty good voice recognition. So one of the features they added recently was the chat stream. So if you are in really high ambient noise voices, you can actually text back and forth, and and it has a pretty good mic on it. So that's a capability we definitely want to enable and use more going forward. We're still not clear on Microsoft's strategic path for Cortana, so we'd like better visibility into that. And then your other question was bringing in more ERP systems. So today we've kind of taken that slow and really used web-based interfaces is all that's available. Dynamics is actually integrated into Remote Assist, so you can pull up some of the workflows if you're using Dynamics 365, some of the offerings there. But right now we're really just focused on the capability of Expert. We're not trying to really change the work processes 100% at this time. So as a simple example, one of the work processes we do is what's called a P&D yellow lining. So we'll go out into the field and yellow line a P&ID drawing. And what we're doing is we're just digitizing that single 2D path. We're not trying to take it into 3 dimensions at this point. We're just taking a digital copy of that P&ID, holographically projecting it, and holographically writing on it to be saved back. So those are some of the workflows. We're not trying to just shift all the way into the future. We're trying to take baby steps and incrementally move the workforce into that kind of future. So.
Great. Thank you, Ed. I think we have a question. Did we have a question in the back? Yep. Or sorry, right here.
So Ed, we all heard that you have a stash of those, so you're probably sitting on a profit center for black market HoloLens sales. My question is around, and I think it was Marcello that mentioned this, that GPS capability. A, is GPS capability in the unit itself, and B, are you guys using it for geofencing to understand what equipment you're sitting in front of so you can supply that information to the end user at the point of use?
Well, the GPS could be a starting point to the organization of the machine we are in front of, but we are working most on the path recognition using the camera of the tablet. So we are is a big deal to have with to handle with the commercial tablets, also even if they are rugged, to recognize the path specific part when you have a camera that has not high resolution format.
So you use like a QR code or use some image recognition today for it?
Yeah, we start to use QR code, but of course, if you have a panel or glasses, wearing glasses, and the QR code could be difficult to handle with some dirty environment, low light, and so most of the time, some cables, electric cables, hydraulic cables, can cover partially the tag. So I think the path recognition algorithms are the right way to go.
Yeah. I'll just first, I should have made clear that Microsoft for us HoloLens is a key strategic partner and is the preferred sort of recommended, in an industrial environment, for hands-free usage. But there are a couple different ways that you could either scan you could recognize a piece of equipment because of its geometry, you could recognize it because of some imagery, or you could use like a QR code, you could recognize it via GPS. So, all our potential methods to invoke an AR experience. Yep. And bring in the maximum list of work orders that are getting to take care of all these. That's right. Yeah, and so I think in each environment there may be challenges. The easiest one, right, would be a QR code, right? That is kind of I don't know. That's going to work 100% of the time. Let me say that. So that's probably your starting point. But they're all possibilities in terms of your options.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any other questions? Okay. So we only have a little bit of time left. So if anyone wants to give any closing remarks about augmented reality, maybe where they think it's going in the next few years, the floor is yours.
We'll give. It's a little bit personal, also, right? AR is a mechanism to experience data. Right, it's a wonderful way to do it. And that data is, as you're going on this digital transformation, you're creating a ton of digital data. One method to give it to people, one easily consumable method is AR, right? So that's really the genesis is going to be all of this digital information via your whole digital transformation is going to be available to you to put into an AR experience. And maybe the purpose of AR is to make that new sort of sea of data more digestible, right? So it's too much information to consume, via many other methods, and visualizing is probably your best means to, take in a large amount of data.
All right. Okay, that's it. Thank you all for being here.